Today, we're going to talk about this article I recently saw. It was brought to my attention by LinkedIn, and it's written by Dr. Rania Khalaf. Before I get into the article, I want to just share a little background on Rania, or at least what I know about Rania. She and I first met, I think, about a decade ago at NeurIPS. I think it was NeurIPS. And from there, I've basically been just a huge fan. So Rania, I believe, did her PhD at MIT, and I'm actually not sure where she is right now. But for a long time, I think she was a director of research at IBM, and generally, I think a really good human being. I tend to have very similar takes on things related to technology and sort of the responsibleness of technology. So this article, I haven't read this, but I thought I'd do kind of a live reaction. I did read the first two, maybe to this part, first three paragraphs, but I wanted to give kind of a live reaction to this article. So let's get into it. It's called "Who is Held Accountable When AI Agents Fail?" Great question. From chatbots encouraging suicide, yikes, to agents deleting production databases. Yep. uh, AI failures are escalating. Yes, they are, Dr. Kolf. But blaming human operators misses the point. Yeah, uh, exactly. And I think that I don't love that a lot of the folks that are building many of these advanced AI systems are kind of like passing the buck. I want to say, I feel like this started, or maybe the first time I saw it was when Microsoft and their GitHub Copilot system was it was doing some code replication, I think, and maybe this is when it nearly perfectly replicated some of Tim Davis's code. Maybe I'll drop this as a screen, a layover or something, so you can see this. And I think Tim Davis posted this saying, "Hey, Microsoft, it looks like you guys are copywriting or you're violating a copyright on this code. I wrote this and it's a near copy." And I think everybody that is a reasonable seasoned coder would look at that code, Tim's code, and then what Copilot produced and think, yeah, that's not great, at least from what I recall. And at that point, I think that Microsoft realized, uh-oh, we could be in a little bit of trouble. So let's instead say that it's not our responsibility. All we're doing are giving suggestions, but whoever accepts the feedback, they're the ones who are ultimately responsible. And the way I kind of think about this is, well, I mean, I think there's many ways to think about this, but one way is imagine if you're at a busy intersection and there's a street light and there's a whole bunch of people in all directions that are kind of waiting for their turn. And then the street light somehow turns all the lights green at the same time. So then everybody drives in and gets into a massive accident. Who do you blame here? Do you blame the human operators that are just following the instruction on the dog's getting a little riley? Let's see if he can make an appearance. Hey guys. Okay. So who do you blame? Do you blame the the operators of the automobiles, or do you blame the state or the city or the county that's controlling the streetlights? So I think it's similar-ish type of thing here is humans, I think, should have some degree of responsibility in this, but the idea of offloading all the responsibility to them, like, for example, in the code case, let's say that you offload all the responsibility to the humans and say any copyright violation is solely your responsibility. What I think will immediately happen is for individuals that are writing code kind of on their own projects, they'll probably just continue to write things and be constantly in copyright violation, and sort of nobody will care, maybe. But for any company that is worth any reasonable amount of money, let's say any company that's worth $1 million or more, is likely not going to take the risk of being sued into non-existence for a copyright violation on a 7-line snippet of code. I mean, as someone that uh, has founded and runs a company that writes software, if this was the risk that I would be posed with, that our developers could accidentally accept a snippet that could put us in copyright violation and then be sued into non-existence, yeah, I'm just going to make any of the coding assistants, I'm going to ban their use. Do we want that? And then now you get into this new problem is the people that know the danger of being sued into non-existence will likely not be using these things, but then they'll be potentially slower, right, in their productivity. Or let me rephrase that. Maybe not productivity, but slower in their ability to produce code. And just to be clear, I think those are the ability to produce code and the ability to be productive, I think are two totally different things, which we've spoken about many times. But you get into this new problem where the people that know about the potential dangers don't use coding assistants for fear of the litigation, and the people who don't know use them uh, sort of without regard of any fear or danger, and they end up in court over ridiculously small things that maybe they should have known about. And then suddenly, this technology, which we supposedly were developing to improve the productivity in the workplace, at least when it comes to software development, becomes essentially a stalemate. And is that what we want? Do we want this kind of stalemate? Now, I don't necessarily know what the answer is. And again, we haven't even started reading this article, but I want to share that I think one thing is certain, and that is pushing all accountability to the human operators without the folks that are developing the AI systems themselves feels minimally intellectually dishonest and maximally just outright a lie. It's just completely mercenary, and it's not acting in good faith at all. Okay, so this is my preamble. Maybe now we can get into the article. So blaming human operators misses the point. Here's how to build real accountability into hybrid human AI systems. And Just as a side note, I really like this, uh, Dr. Rania. This is sort of the way that I think about these things. I think it's very much the future is a human AI collaboration type of thing. I don't think that it's necessarily one or the other, and trying to figure out what the right middle ground is, I think, very challenging. And I also think that it's going to be nuanced. I think it's going to be contextual. I don't necessarily think that while neat in principle that we could make a simple decision and say it's always going to be this divide. In reality, I think that's not going to be the case. We won't get anywhere near that. All right. We're in a moment of hope, hype, and hubris. Yes, we are. AI is solving some of the toughest problems from math Olympiads to self driving cars while simultaneously failing at the simplest tasks. Yeah. A few weeks ago, I was preparing a presentation for a talk and asked a Gen AI model to create an image for the slides representing people chatting about similar interests. It started on the far right path, figure one, left. But when I asked for a simple change to make the icon in the image about AI and make it gender neutral, I got unrelated random images of young men going out for a run. Okay. And just to clarify, what she's trying to do is create an image for this slide of people talking with each other about similar interests, which is what you kind of have here, right? You've got like a dialogue. And then she's saying, make it gender neutral and make it that they're talking about AI. And by the way, this is I've mentioned this many times, but one of the core challenges of AIs is their failure to do iterative refinement. This is like a real problem. And the truth is, most of the work that we do in the world and in science is iterative refinement. That's my strong take. Most of the things that we do in life are not necessarily one offs, unless they're sort of simple tasks like going to the groceries. But even then, the grocery list is often not a one off. You iterate because you don't get the list perfectly. So she does this, and then it goes from two people talking. And now this is probably the opposite of gender neutral because they're all men. And this has nothing to do with people talking. And why is this person running? What does that have to do with, with anything? Yeah, I've been there, experienced that as well, Dr. Rania. It's while humorous at first, it can actually be somewhat frustrating. All right. While that example elicits a chuckle, recent AI failures have come with serious consequences. Given a simulated company's email in a study on misalignment, an agent resorted to blackmail to keep itself from being shut down. Wow. Okay. I don't know if I knew that one. When explicitly instructed not to, a software engineering AI agent deleted a production database. Yes, I'm aware of this. I think this was Replit. Let's look at this. It looks as though Replit did the deletion and then their CEO said should never have been possible. Yes, I agree. It probably never should have been possible, and it is unacceptable. Okay, so it clearly looks like you are taking accountability here, which is great. Okay, calm down, buddy. And then most devastating of all, there has been more than one case of a young life lost after a chatbot's encouragement of suicide. Yeah, and uh, this I think that I have a I don't mean to lean too hard into governance and be ridiculous about stuff, but there are certain things up until about supposedly the age of 25, human beings are still forming our neural network in our brains. And what this means essentially is we haven't necessarily reached full intellectual maturation, right? So our brains are still growing, we're still learning how to think. And when you're in that stage, I would argue that you may not have reached your potential of being able to reason clearly. This is part of the reason why I think in the United States you have to be 21 to drink alcohol and other things. You know, you can't vote until you're 18. You're not considered an adult until the age of 18. I think I mean, this is going to sound, for young people, you're probably not going to love this, but I think it should actually be a little bit higher. I think maybe age of 21. But anyway, so given cases like this, I think this is really awful that you'll get young people whose minds are still developing, and then they speak with an AI chatbot that speaks with a certain level of confidence and certainty that for us adults, well, even for us adults, some of us kind of struggle, right? Oh, sorry, buddy. We kind of struggle in our ability to understand, distill the signal from the noise. But if we as adults have trouble doing this, how can we expect that children will be able to? I think that the answer is you probably can't. So I do think that some guardrails should be put in place for chatbots, and I think that it should, or maybe just AI systems in general. Uh, yeah, we'll have to put a pin in that, but I think of it similar to like restrictions that we tend to have in social networking. That I think if you're under the age of 13, you simply cannot use social media. I think many of the social media sites will not let you even create an account without like parental supervision. So I think we want to do something similar ish here. But I think, and again, I know a lot of young people might not love this, especially given that, the university that I teach at, many of my students, even for the grad class, they're under the age of 25. And I know that they are using language model communication for homework and things. And I think maybe some of that is okay with a certain degree of engagement. But I do think actually this can significantly hamper critical thinking skills. And I really don't care what happens with the advancement of technology. I think one of the most important skills that humans are going to require moving forward, no matter what happens with AI, is we're going to need strong critical thinking skills, especially as AIs develop more, because we will need uh, the strong ability to distill the signal from the noise. And as we know, hallucinations are essentially an inevitability of language models. So if they're an inevitability of language models, that essentially means they're going to, at certain times, say things that are just disconnected from reality. And our ability to elide away that noise is, I think, principally going to be rooted in our ability to think critically. I mean, it makes sense in my head. If I had my notepad, I'd draw a picture. Anyway, so this is not great, right? This is because if you look at this more generally, this is not a one-off, guys. Th- This is not a one-off. How long has the technology existed? And this has already happened? This is fast. And so you may not care about it right now until the point to where it's your child or your sister or your brother, your cousin, your nephew, your niece. And then I can almost guarantee you this is going to be at the forefront of your mind. So who do we blame? Uh, I definitely don't think in cases like this that you blame the human operator. Absolutely not. And I think in the case of deleting a production database, you also do not blame the human operator. Minimally, there should be safeguards and there should be a request for, as Meredith from Signal has said many times, you should not necessarily have unfettered root access for a lot of these operations. It should require at least a confirmation, right? Very much like when you order something online, when you can shop around all you want, but the moment you hit buy, the system doesn't just like, sweet, done. Do you also want a trip to the Caribbean? No, it doesn't. What it does is it stops and says, okay, let's verify you have the authority to do this. And the same should probably be done here, is that the system should have reasoning capabilities, true reasoning capabilities, not the pretend stochastic parroting that we get with language models, but an actual deep critical reasoning system that's under the hood that can distinguish between simple conversation and irreversible actions. Because that's really what it comes down to in my mind is when you're about to make an irreversible action, there should be some degree of confidence that that action is at least being confirmed with someone with authority. And with just an LM only system, because they don't actually understand things, I mean, I can't imagine how this is possible. I just don't think that you can make this happen. I'm getting my notepad out just in case, because I'm starting to feel the need. So yeah, let's continue. The moral crumple zone. Who takes the blame? I was recently discussing this question with Professor Fernanda, when she brought up the interesting concept of moral crumple zones introduced by Dr. Madeline Claire Eilish in 2019. In cars, this is the zone of the car that collapses to absorb a collision, thereby protecting the passengers. In AI systems, the term is being used to describe laying the blame of a complex system failure on a human operator so that someone is held accountable. Yeah, boy, yes, exactly. What we were talking about before, and I don't like Rania. However, whether that person is in fact the correct place to lay the blame is highly questionable. Yes, this is my view as well. Uh, Good try, big tech or Silicon Valley startups that are acting irresponsibly. Not a good look, guys, by the way. And I know that just to meander a little bit here, I'm friends with a lot of these founders in Silicon Valley, and a lot of them, I just want to be clear, a lot of them are really good people. They're really good people. However, if you have the wrong people in your ear, if you have people that are not the best people in the world in your ear, constantly whispering things, saying like, "Oh yeah, yeah, don't worry about that." Like, "Oh, that's not our problem." Like you shouldn't have to worry about that. Just keep going. And yet those people are consistently not held accountable for the dangerous things that they are whispering into these founders' ears. uh, then yeah, you're likely to continue to get uh, people in pretty ethical founders' ears saying the wrong thing. And yeah, that's really it's not great. What I would like to see actually in one of the next big court hearings is to see some of the VC firms held accountable for all the bad guidance and unethical, like hopefully for those of you who haven't seen this or heard about this, there's this play called Macbeth, and it's a great one. But one of the key things about Macbeth is one of Macbeth's most trusted advisors is whispering into his ear, giving him some pretty questionable advice. And because he trusts this person, he's constantly listening to what they're saying. He's doing what they're saying, even though he himself would not do these things. And ultimately, this leads to his downfall. Well, not just his downfall, but a lot of people's downfall. And so I would love to see this type of, I mean, like we can fix multiple things at once. We can get VCs to start taking accountability of telling the founders and guiding the founders the wrong way off the ledge. And then on top of that, we can get these systems to stop pushing the buck forward to the human operators. I think that would be a neat thing to consider. Okay. How do we assign accountability and maintain the safety in these systems? I would love to say there is one thing to install, the single protocol to follow. However, we're in the early days of tech that's evolving super fast and whose reach is vast. Advances to address AI safety are happening on four fronts. First front is global scientific research in safe and responsible AI through academia, from academia through efforts such as Stanford Institute of Human Centered AI, MIT's Algorithmic Alignment Group, Berkeley's Center for Human Compatible AI, and more around the world, and from industry research labs such as IBM Research Trustworthy AI Initiative, Google DeepMind, Frontier Safety Framework, OpenAI's recent study, and so on and so forth, and stuff at Anthropic. Uh, Second is legislation and policy. Speaking of which, I'm actually talking with some of the folks at the state and federal level of legislation on some of these issues with regulation. Uh, I think maybe I'll just leave it at that. But this is a slow process. Legislation takes a while to be passed, and we can probably expect that this isn't going to happen overnight. But there are things, just so all of you are aware, there are things that are actually in the works. Number three, business operational model and process advances as new roles and organizational structures emerge to support AI transformation, with McKinsey noting that the hybrid workforce needs a new talent system. Interesting. I don't know that I've seen this. Okay, I'll check this out. Thanks, Rania. Four, AI software and hardware platform advances that are themselves evolving fast to incorporate findings from scientific research. Okay, So these are basically the 4 ways that this is, being considered that she's describing. And there's probably more, but this is, I think, giving you a good broad sense of things that are currently active to help address some of the AI safety stuff.